Vipraputra Sinhanu Bandhamana Asaman Vartanat Samskaran Yathapade Samvidadhanam Upani Tasyacha Puna Sauchanam Anandani Karma Nidyanam Anand Bidhi Pritanapi Sammasas Skadayad Anusitena Hibhavyam Pitu Putrenite. So, word for word, please repeat. Tasyapi ha va. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's start again. Tasya, of him. Api, ha, va, certainly. Atmajasya, of his son. Vipra, the Brahman father of Jad Bharat. Mad, crazy Bharat. Putrasena adhubandhana mana, who was obliged by affection for his son. Asama avartananta, until the end of the brahmachari ashram. Samkarna, the purificatory process. Yata upadesam, as prescribed in the Shastras. Vidhanhanam, performing. Upanitasya, of one who has a sacred thread. Cha, also. Punha, again. Sucha at mana didhin, practice of cleanliness, washing of the mouth, legs, and hands. Karma ninyam, the regulative principles of fruitive activities. Anabhihi pritan, although not wanted by Jad Bharat. Sammasikasyata, taught. Anusitena, taught to follow the regulative principles. He, indeed, bhavam, should be. Pitu, from the father. Putrena, the son. Iti, thus. Translation. The Brahman's father's mind was always filled with affection for his son Jad Bharat, Bharat Maharaj. Therefore, he was always attached to Jad Bharat because Jad Bharat was unfit to enter Grihastra ashram. He simply executed the purificatory process up to the end of Brahmachari ashram. Although Jad Bharat was unwilling to accept his father's instructions, the Brahman nonetheless instructed him in how to keep clean and how to wash, thinking that the son should be taught by the father. Purport. Jad Bharat was Bharat Maharaj in the body of a Brahman, and he outwardly conducted himself as if he were dull, deaf, dumb, and blind. Actually, he was quite alert within. He knew perfectly well of the results of fruitive activities and the results of devotional service. In the body of a Brahmin, Bharat Maharaj was completely absorbed in devotional service within. Therefore, it was not at all necessary for him to execute the regulated principles of fruitive activities as confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. One has to satisfy Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is a perfection of regulated principles of fruitive activities. Besides that, it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, duties, dharma, executed by men, regardless of occupation, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. Bhagavatam 1:2-8. These karmakanda activities are required as long as one has not developed Krishna consciousness. If one is developed in Krishna consciousness, there is no need to execute the prior regulated principles of karma kanda. Please excuse me, I cannot follow all these regulated principles, for I am fully engaged in devotional service. He expressed the desire to sit somewhere beneath a tree and continue chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Consequently, he did not execute the regulated principles. Similarly, Haridas Thakur was born in a Mohammedan family. From the very beginning of his life, was never trained in Karmakanda system, but because he was always chanting the holy name of the Lord, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him as Namacharya. The authorities in chanting the holy name, as Jad Bharat, Bharat Maharaj was always engaged in devotional service within his mind. Since he had executed the regulated principles continually for 3 lives, he was not interested in continuing to execute them, although his Brahmin father wanted him to do so. Om Jnana Timarandasa Gnana Sadhaka Chaksusu Militam Gina Tajmal Shri Garayam Sri Chaitanya Madhubhistam Srapitangena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kala Parate Swami Pandeham Sri Guru Sri Jatavat Kamala Sri Guru Vaishnavanstam Sri Rupam Sagurajatam Saguna Da Sri Visikani Damsham Namo Om Vishnu Vedaya Krishna Kastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesh Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarane. So now we're on the 3rd birth of Bharat Maharaj. It's described in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 41. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into the family of a righteous people, or into a family of rich and the aristocrat. So we know that in Jad Bharat's first life, he was son of a king who was none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Rishabdev. And out of 100 sons, he was the one selected to take the duties of his father as king. Karmabandha, this is how the 3 modes of material nature determine what type of body one is given in their next life. So because of his pious activities, he was born into a royal family. He was given control of not just a small section of a country, but the entire world. So much so that the world was named after him. his citizens. They were completely satisfied by the rule of this powerful, great, pious king. But from this point, we will learn not what he did right, but what he did wrong. So, as we know that at a certain time in his life, he abandoned his rule of his kingdom and he gave control to one of his sons, and he went into the forest to practice meditation, knowing well within his mind that every living entity's duty is to finish this life and go back to Godhead. So his rule of his kingdom was 1,000 times 10,000 years. That's a very, very long, long time. So definitely it wasn't in Kali Yuga. He proceeded to execute all of the Vedic principles prescribed in the Shastras. But what he didn't know was that there was an invisible, wicked mistress who was always with him. And her duty is to deter and to stop anybody who is on the path of self-realization, especially for those who are almost completely successful. The young neophyte is very easy to deter from continuing on their path of self-realization. This mistress, she has a bag. And what does this bag say? Bag of tricks. Yes, this is her bag that she carries with her at all times. And if you like tricks, you most certainly will not like any of these tricks. So Bharat Maharaj had given up a kingdom. He had ruled the entire world. He had wealth beyond our imagination, beautiful women, children, education, and wise and learned Brahmins to advise him in how he should conduct his kingdom. So all of these things would be useless to offer him. Maya knew that, yes, what good is it to offer him wealth? He had more wealth than he could ever imagine, or a beautiful woman, or family. He has had that and he has given that up. What can I do? How can I take him back? Gain control of him. So she thought for a moment, and then she came upon the idea of, yes, this will work. So what did she do? She called from the forest a simple deer. She told that deer to go to the place where Bharat Maharaj was doing his meditation and take a drink of water from the river, knowing well that that deer was with baby inside. And then she called upon another forest creature, the lion. The lion is the king of beasts. And she told that lion, I want you to roar. And then she again says, I want you to roar. So, under the control of material energy, the lion obeyed and roared as loud as he could. And what did this do? This created from her bag of tricks, it created fear in the heart of that little deer. And that deer, fearing for its life, began to run, trying to escape the ferocious lion. And in doing so, prematurely dropped her child. Fearing for her life, left that child there, that baby, in the water, floundering for its life. And observing all of this was Bharat Maharaj. So how did she capture Bharat Maharaj? Knowing well that he was a wise, gentle, and very, very compassionate living entity, she reached into her bag of tricks again and threw compassion in the face of Bharat Maharaj. And he rescued the deer. Rescued the deer from what? He knew that where there is birth, there is death. If one lives for 1 second or one lives for 100 years, it is inevitable that everybody will die. But Bharat Maharaj, having compassion for that baby deer, took that deer to his hermitage and began to nurture and care and love that little deer. As a result of this, he neglected to perform his prescribed duties. He neglected to read and follow instructions in the Shastras. He neglected to keep his mind 100% absorbed in thoughts of Narayan. His thoughts were only for the welfare and the care of his new-found little deer. So what happened? Maya became very happy. She was elated because she had taken this wise, saintly, pious individual and distracted him from his true purpose of life, of giving up his attachment to everything in this material world. Jai Shri Gaurnitai, Jai Shri Krishna Balaram, Jai Shri Radhashama Sundar Vadita Vishakadeva. Distracted him from his true purpose of life, of completely absorbing his mind and thoughts on Lord Narayan. Every day he would think of the welfare of his deer, if there was any other creatures nearby that might cause harm to him. Did the deer have enough food to eat? Was it happy? Was it healthy? So this way his mind was always thinking of the deer. But little did he realize that while he was engaged in these types of thoughts, Kala, or time, was taking away his life. And eventually it was time for him to leave his material body. Instead of being focused on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was focused on that little deer. And as a result, as we know from reading Bhagavad Gita, in whatever state of mind one is thinking at the time of death, they will attain to that state in their next life. So Bharat Maharaj became a deer. Unlike most other creatures in the forest, he was blessed by the Lord, and he remained fully cognizant of all of his pious activities, all of the proper processes of self-realization in that deer's body, and lamented every day for his misjudgment and his misbehavior towards that deer. Even in the deer's body, he would meditate upon the Lord. He would go to holy places and he would forage in the forest, eating only dried leaves, not associating with any other creatures of the forest. And then again, the cruel hand of time, Kala, took his life again. And because of his piety, he was born into a Brahmin family. His father was determined to instruct his son properly, teach him the regulated principles, and teach him how he should act and behave as a proper Brahmin. But in this body, Jad Bharat wanted nothing to do with this. Although he was fully cognizant in his mind, and his heart was 100% absorbed in meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he disregarded the instructions of his father. But his father was determined to teach him and was constantly thinking of his son Jad. So what does this show us? At the time of death, Jad Bharat was thinking of a deer, and his father is always thinking of his son. So this means that his father will take birth again because his consciousness is not focused on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jad Bharat acted as though he were deaf, blind, dumb, and he was ridiculed and disturbed and made fun of by all of the people in the village who were less intelligent. But for him, he was determined, in this life, I will not be swayed, I will not be tricked again by Maya. She will have no use for her bag of tricks with me in this lifetime, because I am determined to go back to Godhead. So I'd like to ask you one question. What's your name, Prabhu? Brajan. Yes. And who's sitting next to you? You don't know. What's your name? Ravin. Okay, but I want to know who is sitting between you. Sitting between you is that nasty mistress. She is following you. What is she doing? With one hand, she is stroking your head, telling you life is going to be just fine. All of your wishes and all of your desires will be fulfilled. Yes, I promise you this. But with one of her other hands, she is grasping you around the neck and choking the life out of you and laughing under her breath at how easy it is to control these living entities in this material world. 8,400,000 species of life. And in each of these there are innumerable of these. Even in one anthill you will find millions and millions and millions of ants. And Maya has her grip and her control of those small little creatures all the way up to us in these human forms of life. And Jad Bharat, being very wise, although appearing to be very dumb, knew very well that this time the material energy, this time Maya, will not deceive me. She will not take control of my life. And I will fulfill my responsibilities in this human form of life. I will focus my mind and my attention solely, wholly, 100% onto the lotus feet of Sri Hari. And my reward, not that I want anything, is I will attain pure love of God. And when I give up this gross material body, I will go back to the spiritual world. So us here, we're sitting, we are making endeavors to purify our souls. Some of us are serious, some of us are whimsical, but everyone is here, everyone is listening, everyone has the equal opportunity to fulfill their obligation in these human bodies. Only, not in a deer's body, not in a tiger's body, not in a lion's body, but only in these human bodies can we successfully go back to Godhead. And this was the mentality of Jad Bharat. He didn't care if people spit on him. He didn't care where his food came from. When his father tried to teach him the hygienic way of passing stool, pass stool first, then wash your hand. He would wash his hand first and then pass stool. So, deliberately disobeying his father's instructions because he wanted to be left alone. He wanted that solitude where his consciousness could be absorbed solely and wholly on the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality. So we can take example from Jad Bharat. We don't have to go to his extremes, but we should learn to focus our intelligence always on the lotus feet of the Lord. And how is that done? In previous ages, just as when Jad Bharat was living, it required that he go to the forest, he practiced severe austerities, he do meditation, he offers oblations 3-4 times a day. And this was the process for self-realization. But needless and sorry to say that in Kali Yuga, we are all less intelligent. Our memories are very short. We're not able to perform austerities. Even fasting for one day for most people is an impossible feat. So, how are we blessed? And who blessed us? None other than Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came here in this Kali Yuga, knowing well that we are all less intelligent people, but we still deserve the right to purify our souls and to go back home, back to Godhead. So what were his instructions? Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gatri anyata. That in this age of Kali Yuga, there is only one way to purify your soul. And what is that? I can't hear. Yes, to chant the Maha Mantra. And what is that Maha Mantra? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And how should one chant that mantra? How should you chant the holy name of the Lord? Yes, sir. Yes, without committing any of the 10 offenses. If you chant the Maha Mantra and you are making offenses, what happens? The results of your chanting are nullified. There will be a small bit of benefit from chanting the holy name, but until you can chant the holy name without any offense, then your chanting has a little value. So we are here, we all have japa beads, everyone has their beads with them, and we are obliged to chant a minimum of 16 rounds of the holy name each day, which should take no more than 2.5 hours. So this means that for 2.5 hours, your mind should be focused and chanting that holy name with determination to not commit any of the 10 offenses while chanting. But if you only chant 2.5 hours a day, that means that 22.5 hours are left. What are you doing? Where is your mind? Jad Bharat decided that he would remain deaf and dumb, would not speak, would act as though he could not hear. So when you are not speaking, your mind should still remain focused on the Supreme Lord. You should be thinking. of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. You should be thinking of the wonderful pastimes of Lord Krishna that he carried out right here in Vrindavan. We are here in this holy dham, the most holy place in the entire universe. Demigods are lining up so they may also come here and have darshan of Govardhan Hill, to take bath in Radhakund, to go to Sevakunj. So we are here. Our minds should be focused on these holy places. And when we speak, what should we speak? How should we speak? Do you know what prajapal is? Prajapal. Yes? How much of your day is spent engaged in prajapal? Huh? I cannot hear you. 2 hours? Only 2 hours a day you engage in prajapal. Do you time yourself? Between 3 and 5, this is my prajapal time? No. 90% of everybody, when they're not chanting the holy name of the Lord on their japa beads, their tongue is wagging and it is engaged in prajapal. So it's better to be like Jad Bharat and not speak at all, because the tongue that wags and speaks nonsense is described as being no better than that of a serpent's tongue. You've seen the serpent's tongue coming out like this. So your tongue is just like that. And it is also venomous. It is poisoning your heart. So learn with your intelligence. Intelligence is higher than the mind. Mind is higher than the body. So with our intelligence, when the mind wants to engage the tongue in this frivolous type of conversation, you say no. I will not engage in this type of activity, because I am going to become determined to leave this material world in this very lifetime. So therefore, I am reading Srimad Bhagavatam. I am learning from great personalities like Jad Bharat how one must behave if they want to go back to Godhead. It's not like you go to the train station and buy a ticket and say, "Take me home." We must work very, very, very hard to go home back to Godhead. Who wants to go home? Who wants to go back to Godhead? Show me your hands. Who wants to stay here and suffer birth after birth after birth after birth, not knowing what species of life you will be given in your next birth, and have Maya continue to grasp you around the neck? It's described that she has a noose around each and every one of our necks, and that noose is pulled very tightly. But when you become serious about self-realization and you worship Lord Krishna faithfully with love and devotion, He will personally come down and He will loosen that noose and He will remove it from your head, and you will be free from Maya. She will become your maid servant. As we read further in this story, we will see exactly how this happens. I don't want to jump too far ahead into the story because some other devotee will want to speak on this subject. But I humbly pray that together all of us can take this process very seriously and always, without a doubt, be grateful to Srila Prabhupada for coming and saving us all. So if anyone has a question, any complaints or comments? You have to speak loudly, Prabhu.